You mentioned in your last video, Priapism caused substantial growth. How can we cause extended Priapism? So, first, don't try to copy it one-to-one. Then, what you need to do is figure out why Priapism works, right? And this is going to be literally the basis of PE. The chronic stress causes shape change, while the literal fatigue of the tissue allows for a lot more tissue to be packed in, but since it happens so aggressively, it's going to cause weird growth patterns, and a lot of these guys have like a broken barrel shape to them. So if you're actually trying to copy Priapism, and please nobody fucking do this, you need to have an erection longer than 4 hours at a relatively slow state to get that hypoxia. I'm going to turn that off. If we're going to copy it, you need an erection for 4 hours. You need to have a slow-moving erection. So taking something like PGE-1 would not work in this case. It would just leave you pretty beat up, but not have the hypoxic benefits with it. So then you could do like mechanical clamping. It's like you need to have a clamp on for 4 hours without significantly cutting off blood flow enough to kill your dick, but at the same time have enough to actually cause hypoxia for that extended period. So don't do that. There's no real good way safely to copy Priapism. So like fucking M9 wrote a post a couple years ago called The Event How His One Friend Gained 1/4 inch by clamping 5 hours or 8 hours, 5 minutes on, 5 minutes off. I tried to do it for 4 hours and I actually lost size from it because of the chronic stress with it. So do not even bother doing it. Unless you meant all day cock ring B cage. And if you're talking about Priapism, that's not going to be the same thing because you're probably going to lose that. It's just going to be edema afterwards. Rowan, B cage, all those old school PEers were full of crap. I wouldn't say they're full of crap, but it was kind of like the blind leading the blind, and then one of them would have been kind of right, and then they'd take the wrong conclusions for it. So like, for example, progressive overload training. These guys would still see linear gains with it, but they didn't realize that the reason why they did not continuously see gains the more and more weight they did is that they're literally stressing out their dicks to the point where they contract. And like they'll be like, oh, there's obviously a gains limit, but no, it actually is that you were stressing the shit out of your dick. And then same with traditional pumping. Like it worked up until a point, but like once you get past like 2 hours in the tube, you're gonna have so much edema, like it's gonna be a negative effect. So no, I don't think they were full of shit as much as they just didn't know, and a lot of them didn't really have a medical background. Like that's my biggest fucking gripe about old school PE and a lot of people now, is that they just still use fucking physics to talk about biology. Like, yeah, I get physics as the backbone of the rules of the universe, but like I can tell you what the dick is going to respond to better just by knowing how the body responds, right? Hold on, where are we at? Okay, we did that one. So thoughts on scrotoplasty for turkey neck. I've considered it myself, but like for me, like I'd rather get very close to my end size, or at least hit like a ridiculously large size and then get it fixed and then do it, because like there's always a chance that with PE is just going to bring it back again. So like you can do it. It's a pretty simple surgery. Like I've seen it as low as $1,500 here in the States, which is nuts. But you know, like results may vary on the doctor, and like you probably want to actually do some foreskin restoration beforehand so that skin sits prettier once you remove it all. Hold on. I'm trying to figure out where we left off. Is 90 days the minimum amount of time for deconditioning? So deconditioning breaks will take anywhere from 30 days to 3 months to even a year, depending how long you've done PE for. The longer the break, the more sensitive you'll be when you come back, but it also depends on how much strength adaptation you build. So like if you can hang 25 pounds off your dick and you want to be able to like do normal PE again in like 10-pound range, it's going to take like at least 3 months to lose that much. But like if you did normal PE for about a year, you got up from 7 pounds to 15 pounds in that time frame. If you take 4 to 6 weeks off, you'll be back down to like 5 to 7 pounds to start again. So like longer the break is for the more severe cases. Like I just came back from a 1 month break after pretty intensive PE for the past 10 months, right? And I can't go past 10 pounds again on my Apex extender. I can't pump past 30 that easily anymore. So like it worked. TR, I gained half an inch in length, but it only shows when I fully kegel and close to finishing. That's pretty common. I extend with intervals and pump 40 minutes a day in 2 sessions at 10 inches of mercury. So you could actually have like minor erectile quality issues. So like if you've been doing that type of PE for, let's say, 2 months, right? You're gonna have a bit of chronic fatigue down in your pelvic floor and down in your dick. So like if you take 2 or 3 days off, you might see a dramatic increase in erection quality. But like when I take my photos, I literally make sure I'm at my biggest for logging, so I just know it's practical. My like masturbation boners are usually about 1/4 of an inch shorter than whatever I show you guys on Reddit. And then like my sex boners are probably a little bit bigger than what I show on Reddit. So like, don't really worry about it all that much. As long as it's trending in the right direction, you'll eventually be at your max size that you are now in like 3 to 6 months, depending on how big the delta is. Steve, not sure if it was you, but I remember hearing about a tighter length tube when pumping 1.75, for example, for length once the girth maxes out the tube. It would not, I don't like length pumping. There's people that think it's really good, but I can tell you now, it is almost fucking the worst thing you can do for length. Out of all the things that work for length, there's going to be stretching, there's going to be extenders, high tension and low tension, there's going to be all-day stretchers. Did I say hangers? But point being, all 4 of those are going to be way more viable options for length than length pumping in particular, because it's directly translating that tension to the dick in a linear fashion rather than hoping that you get enough expansion and hoping you can overcome friction and hoping that your edema response doesn't actually elongate rather than the rest of your shaft. Teddy the handyman. All right, so I was thinking about buying DHT Cream and try it for a while. It's my last choice. It is not your last choice. But I can help the depression man. So there's so much to unpack here. First of all, DHT Cream in general is very unproven to work. Like, the people I know did not really see that many gains long term. We're talking maybe 1/4 of an inch because they're already relatively well-developed men. All they did is get across the finish line if they had a stunted puberty. The only time DHT Cream will work effectively is if you had a stunted puberty. Straight up, it's the only biological process that would make it work. So, unless you're hypogonadal as a teenager, which is possible, but that's more of a conversation for you and your doctor, it is not worth risking your natural testosterone production blindly just to hope to grow your dick a little bit faster. I am telling you now, there are many ways to grow your dick. There are many styles to grow your dick, but there's a lot of slop you have to go through to do it. So, for the love of God, do not try DHT. If you are actually concerned about being hypogonadal, go to your doctor, ask him to get a testosterone test, and then work your way back. You can even get a testosterone test on your own via lab order these days. So there's no reason to be making such a brash decision about your health. Boo. How much edema should we get when we're doing feeder sets? Very little. We're talking like maybe 2% of the expansion should be edema in general. I get practically none in that 10 minutes. But like if you just started, you're going to get more edema than me because it's going to be more of a stress response than anything else. As long as you don't have like a huge gullet from pumping under your glands, you're going to be fine, especially if only in 10 minutes. Destroyer, what do you think about pumping for 5 inches of mercury during a 30-day conditioning break? I don't necessarily think you should be pumping period during deconditioning break because there's a chance of re-aggravating that strength adaptation. So like if you do enough work to keep the strength adaptation, you'll keep it. 5 inches of mercury is probably not enough to like fuck up the process, but I don't know if it's worth the risk. I personally in my last break did pumping about 2 to 3 times a week at like maybe 5 to 7 inches of mercury, and like I'm having pretty good metrics still now at very low tensions. So it's probably safe, but it's not something I would necessarily recommend. So Forsaken, when pumping every day for gains, can you tell me what to look out for when it comes to accumulation of edema and what to look out for what do I do to see if I'm pumping correctly. So edema is usually going to pool right under the glands or right at the tip of the foreskin. The bigger that is, the more edema you have. The less vascularity you have, the more edema you have. The less sensitivity you have, the more edema you have. So if you have a lot of swelling, a lack of vascularity, and a lack of sensation, that's mostly edema. You're looking for a red hot dick with a significant vascularity that is much bigger than normal, but not obscenely big. Okay, forsaken. My question is regarding the accumulation of edema. How do I deal with accumulation of edema when I'm pumping every day? I won't get too much edema when pumping every day as it accumulates. Edema should go away within 4 to 6 hours, so as long as you're pumping outside that window, you'll be fine. If it lasts more than 24 hours, you probably really overpumped. But like the easiest way to get rid of edema is cardio, because that's going to get the blood moving, and the lymphatic system's pretty linked to the cardiovascular system. So the more your heart pumps, the more the lymphatic system pumps, therefore the faster. So Jay, can you please explain why 2-minute sets are more effective for girth than 5? What's the difference? Why is 5 better than 2 for EQ? So we have 2 different training styles. There's going to be fatigue-based training, that's going to be your 2 minutes. And then we have our like dilation-based training, which is going to be your 5, 10, even 20 minutes if we're nuts. The more often the tissue is loaded, the more chances of collagen fatigue there is, because collagen breaks down at the point of stretch. So the more often it's stretched in a pulsing manner, the more likely it is to break down, and therefore we'll see more growth factor release, and therefore more work done in a shorter amount of time. And then when you look at the dilation stuff, so 5, 10, 20 minutes, whatever, we're going to see it learn to take that bigger shape for a longer period of time. So in my opinion, if you do an ample amount of fatigue-based work in one session, and then have 2, maybe even 3 sessions of dilation-based girth, which we call retention, you're going to have your best results, because you are maximizing your size all the time while still spurring new growth patterns with 2-minute sets. Jay, thank you, BD. So if 2 minutes break down more collagen than 5 minutes, why not 1 minute or 30 seconds? I mean, you can definitely try it. Like, by my understanding of like ligaments and tendons, the sweet spot's actually going to be about 32 seconds to a minute. The problem is, especially when I first invented the interval pumping style, that we just had the manual pump, and it would get really tiring really fast. I know people have been trying literally as low as 7 seconds, but like the problem is like after you do so many stretch cycles, the tissue kind of just poops out and doesn't get any more elongated as you stretch it, and that's when you get to the fatigue. So like for me, there's going to be a sweet spot with how much time you're dilated compared to how often you stretch it, and 2 minutes seems to be the best spot for me. 1 to 3 is the range I normally recommend, and then after like the 1 to 3, if you're really trying to pack on a lot of girth, that's when you probably want to move to like the 5 to 10 minute sets afterwards. 2 scoops, thank you for the super chat. What's the best extenders you recommend? You gotta be careful saying best extender, because that's a trademark. Typical, right? So Apex is by far my favorite brand, because I'm good friends with the owner. It is literally going to be full metal with the right options. They also have a DIY version if you can't afford the $200 piece of kit. This is going to last you at least 20 years, okay? Then if your money is a bit tight, you can look at the Hog Stretcher. I don't have any personal review of the Hog Stretcher, but on Reddit it is well documented. That's really the only 2 that I would recommend. Some companies tried to go really cheap, and they ruined the device they had originally. And then some device makers are ran by total assholes and don't deserve your money. So Apex, #1 choice. Completely biased, but you asked what my favorite is. So, and then the Hog Stretcher if you want something a bit more cost effective. So Peter, as the smartest man in PE, would you like to see in the Apex 3.0? I would say Hink is probably the smartest guy in PE. I just have a lot more time to devote to it. But from the 3.0, really all I want is the 2.0 with just slightly better springs. That's really all I would ever want. I don't really care for the digital scale because like those break down, those need calibrated. I like the device as is. Maybe it's like, it's purely aesthetics for me. Like, I don't like the brass. That's really it. But like, that's an easy fucking fix. It's not going to change the functionality. It's a great device as is. And honestly, if Perv just kept it like this and just did some refinements on the aesthetic for me, I'd be happy. Lemo, have you seen Hank's new video topic 1.9 inches in 6 months of Phallosan Forte? I was supposed to review that before it went live, but I've just been too fucking busy. And I'm sorry, Hank. It'd be $1 billion company. I'm telling you now, like those really high profit margin devices are moving millions, like straight up. Because like, let's do a little thought process for you guys so you can kind of see why I get so pissed when I see these prices. So, how much is the Phallosan right now? $390. So let me switch my screen around. Okay. So if it's, let's say 1 million in a year is their goal. So we're going to say 1 million divided by 12. They need to be pulling in 83,000 a month. So with their product at $390, they need to move 213 units. Wow, that is a lot. I can tell you now. We have a relatively close order volume, and we don't do nearly as much marketing as Phallosan. And then let's just assume that the product probably cost, like, it's fucking fabric and plastic. It's not going to be more than like $10 in material cost. We'll say $20 in like actual manufacturing costs. So let's do this again. So $225 is what they're fucking with every purchase after cost to produce. Now, some of that's going to go to marketing, obviously, and some of that is just going to be like, you know, return on investment if they actually did spend a lot of money building the device. Like, those molds are probably going to be about $10,000 a piece, but like, again, if they sell 225 units, they got all their molds made up and then some. So like, that's why I get so mad at these people that are selling extenders for like $400, because like, I can tell you now how much it cost, right? And like, I know exactly the profit margins on the Apex extender, right? I know how Perv can make it work, and I know how much more it costs to do it his way compared to like, say, Best Extender. Okay, Peanut, drop a tutorial on how to make a Phallosan Forte for the fraction of the price. Well, we have that at peakmellphysique.com already. So we have our all-day stretcher kit, and it's practically the same thing, right? You have the thing that connects to your hips, right? Am I showing? Let me check. So obviously you have your belt. You have the little thing to connect with. The only real difference between the Phallosan and this one is that the Phallosan can go up to 6 pounds, while this can only go up to 2 pounds, and obviously you can tell what the tension is. But like, what you can do in the meantime, fishing scale, is get something like this. It's a fish scale. So like, when you catch a fish, you hook it to the scale, and then gravity does it and measures the weight. What you can do is use it to measure the pull force, and then you mimic the pull force, and then all you really need to do is figure out a way to keep the hook part on, but you can also just use like a carabiner and a resistance band, wrap it over the belt instead, and then you have an all-day stretcher at a fraction of almost 10% less, or 10% of the price of the Phallosan Forte. FPE, please give us your hair routine. So, first of all, my hair is mostly genetics. My parents both have very good hair. I just use relatively decent conditioner. So like, it's Garnier Fructis, and then, you know, Garnier shampoo, sometimes Head and Shoulders, depending if it's like I'm extra sweaty. But in general, I just do that every day. I don't let the oil sit, and you got to brush it out. Particularly for frizz, I use argan oil, and like, that's going to be 2 or 3 pumps. Make sure my hair's a little wet so it evenly distributes. But today I'm just a little bit sweaty, and that's why I don't have that much frizz. It's usually pretty bad, especially with the dry air from winter. Okay, so B-Cage, as someone who marathoned your vids many times over and has a really good understanding of your principle, is your book on girth going to have anything worth the purchase? So, like, everything that I do have is free, okay? Right now, if anything, my YouTube is a little more current than my books, because my YouTube is basically a live journal of everything I'm trying and everything I'm looking into. The girth book is what I have been confident that will work. So, it's a very good organizational tool. It's really good to get you up to speed. And if you're not so good at spoken English, it's going to be really good for that. But like, if you are a broke ass college kid and you can't afford, the $60 to $70 that it is for both of them, just watch my videos. Go on my Reddit and dig through my old posts. You might have to do some like, okay, he said this in 2020. Now he's saying this. Just take whatever was the most recent and go from there. Okay, first, John Italia. No homo, but you're the only guy that made it grow for me. So there's two ways that can go. I did have an OnlyFans. It was predominantly men that followed me, so I am aware of that. Secondly, I'm also aware I'm very good at PE, so I'll take the compliment either way. And then Sable Turner, kind of picking off of this, would you say good face is more or less important than D size? So I would like to think I'm relatively handsome. I would like to think that it's my face that gets me a lot of the goodwill I get from other people. So being like just attractive does so much. It like makes it easier to get shit done from talking to people. As long as you're not a total dick, you'll go a decent bit farther. It is sad, but like pretty people have a easier time getting things from other people. So like, unless you're literally walking around using your dick as an intimidation tactic, it's not going to be that much of a benefit other than the obscene confidence. But there's another side of this coin. You could be attractive and not know it, or like your just style is fucking terrible, and like you'll not have the same benefit. Like there's a lot to it, and like for me, I didn't get the obscene confidence until like the past 2 or 3 years. So like I did not get any female attention. Okay, so there's a lot to it. That's all I'm really trying to say. But I would say, like, if you could choose between having a 9 out of 10 face or like an 8-inch dick, a 9 out of 10 face is going to have a much better quality of life improvement. And like, I'm not saying like if you aren't a pretty dude, you can't go far in life. Look how fucking ugly Elon Musk is. Like, his mom was a goddamn supermodel and he looks like a turd, yet he's a billionaire. So you can make it work. Most of the billionaires are pretty ugly, aren't they? But there's so many ways to success, guys. So Peanut back about talking about looks. It's probably going to be face, then being able to make her if anything, unless someone has a micro. Even with a micro, you can do some pretty significant pleasure. Like, it's going to sound a little weird, but like, you can just use your glands to rub against their clit, and this works at all sizes. Some sex tips for you. And you can do foreplay while still doing stimulation to yourself. It's like just doing that with a bit of a gyrating motion. Really good foreplay tactic. And then they make toys, right? So like, even if you have a micro penis, first you should see your doctor if you actually have a like congenital or like, extended hormones, 2 different treatment patterns, right? But like, you can get like a dildo and make it work, right? Just because you have a small dick doesn't mean you can't be great at sex. You just got to figure out a way to make up for your differences.